What's going on, everyone? In today's episode, I am very excited because we are back out at the farm today, and a lot of you have asked for an overview, basically a site plan of everything that we have done and will do here on the farm. And so I thought today, with how beautiful of a day it is, mid-December, I mean, it's just a perfect day. I thought today would be a great day to do that for you all. So with that, let's go airborne and follow me around. And because it's a big property, we got a lot to talk about. Let's go. So this is the apple orchard. Now the apple orchard is something we're really proud of because the apple orchard is going to be a first of its kind here in Michigan. Now, there are a lot of other orchards that claim to have heirloom varieties. However, this orchard, this part of the farm, is going to be what's called our preservation orchard. It's essentially a grouping of heirloom trees with a focus on heirlooms. And we're going to have, as you can see, a lot already planted, but we're going to continue to plant all the way down the property. And basically, we're going to have over 300 apple trees comprising over 150 different varieties. Absolutely crazy. We have our entrance over here. As you can see, our gate and everything is done, so that is awesome. And the apple orchard continues. I mean, it really goes a long way. This whole apple orchard is going to be roughly about 2.5 acres in size, just in apples. This is where our greenhouse is gonna be. Now, our greenhouse is just the same dimensions as our greenhouse we have at the shop. It is a 20 by 50. So it's gonna give us 1,000 square feet of seed starting space for all of the seed starting we're gonna do for the farm. And so this right here is just basically a really simple greenhouse. There's nothing too special about it. It's got the regular wiggle wire construction. It's got the basic hoops, nothing very fancy about it. We went really cost effective here because we don't have a ton of technology that we really need to implement here. It'll be manual roll up sides and unheated, so it'll kind of limit how early we can start, but it is phenomenal and was really cheap. So it's a good thing to have here on the farm. And then coming back, you'll see our mulch pile. This mulch pile is one of many that we're going to have because with all the trees and all the planting we're going to be doing here, mulch is one of the best ways to suppress weeds and hold moisture in the soil. And so we've got an agreement with a local tree company, and they keep dumping hardwood mulch here basically whenever they do jobs in the area. So this is our mulch pile. Now, as this mulch breaks down, it'll also make really good compost for the gardens, which is great. So right here, there's nothing planted yet. This is gonna be the continuation of our apple orchard. The apples are going to extend all over here. So everything you see over here that's not planted is still going to be apples. We're getting those in the spring. Coming over this way, we're nearing kind of the fence line to the property, and the fence line is just a temporary fence line. Eventually, we're going to take ownership of everything on the other side as well, all the way over to the tree line. We'll talk more about that in a second, but this right here is where we're going to basically be starting the pears. So we have the apple orchard, then we have the heirloom pear portion of the orchard, and we're going to have about 36 different pear trees comprising about 18 different varieties, which is crazy. So this right here is part of our seed saving plot. Now we have a lot of different seed saving plots, as we'll talk about on this farm. That's the main objective of the farm, and that's to generate seeds for all of you guys. Now, when you shop at MIgardener.com, those seeds have to come in the packets somehow, and generally that's done through partnering with farmers. However, the farmers don't always want to save seeds that we want to sell, and so sometimes we're beholden to what they want to grow. Oftentimes, if they stop saving the seeds from a certain variety, we have to go to another farmer, and if we can't find those seeds, then we have to really either grow it ourselves or do without. And we really don't want to do that. We want to have more control over our offerings, and so we're going to be doing a lot more in-house, and that's what these seed plots are for. Now, the seed plots are going to be based on not only vegetable variety, but spacing, because certain vegetables need spacing to keep them from cross-pollinating. And so we're going to have 50-foot by 50-foot seed blocks that are going to be dedicated to different crops. Now we have about two plots behind you. There's another 2 plots right here. And then there's another 2 plots back here for a total of 6 plots that are 50-foot by 50-foot just in this area right here. Basically from the pond all the way to the fence, we have about 6 of those seed plots. And then there's going to be about 30 to 35 feet in between each for good mowing and just keeping the land really well maintained. Then after those seed plots, we have yet again another row of orchards. Now, these orchards right here are going to be a continuation of pears. So we have pears up by the apples, and then we have pears back here. And that's simply because we want to make sure that we have enough room for those seed plots. And the way that the spacing worked out, it was better for us to have a seed plot closer, but break up the pears than it was to have all the pears together. So we basically pick up the pears again. Now we're back into these pears. We have like these gorgeous Bartlett pears. Oh my gosh, the plants just are absolutely amazing. They're beautiful. Some Bartlett pears, D'Anjou, just some of my favorite varieties of fruits are included up here. So we pick up the pears and then we pick up the stone fruits. So all over here we have stone fruits. And the reason why we have stone fruits back here has to do with the quality of soil. Up closer to the property, we have a lot more clay content and it's a little bit more dense. Back here, it's very loose and well draining. And because your stone fruits like peaches, cherries, plums, nectarines, things like that, they all really need that well draining sandy loam soil, which is what you're getting back here. It's absolutely the best quality soil I've ever seen in my entire life when it comes to just unamended native soil. It's phenomenal. So we've got a row of peaches here. This is our peach block. And basically our peach block is, some are planted, some are not planted. We have basically a block of 6 peach trees wide by 6 peach trees long. So we're gonna have a total of 36 peach trees in this block. And then over here are our plums and nectarines. Now we group them together because they're pretty similar in variety, and because we don't have that many of them, we grouped them together. So we're gonna have a total of 42 combinations of peaches or plums and nectarines in this area right over here. Then in the back, where Dalton and Carrie are planting, we're going to have some cherries. Now these cherries are part of an heirloom cherry collection, which is going to have roughly about 30 different cherry trees comprising of about 15 different varieties. Now I know you're probably asking, well, why are you planting 2 or 3 and not more? Well, it's because it allows us, 1, to have more variety, and 2, if something happens, we at least have 1 variety that then we can take graftings of, or we can replicate that, and we at least have 1 to showcase what that variety should look like. And basically our mission is to preserve heirlooms. It's to create biodiversity that's going to be preserved forever. Now, past the cherries, we have a huge open area. This whole open area is going to be dedicated towards more seed preservation. We're going to have roughly all the way to the back, we're going to have more drought tolerant things like corn. Coming up here, we're going to have more things like pumpkins and squash. Then we're going to have other things like peppers and tomatoes that can tolerate a little drier soil. They don't need to be near water as much because our water source is up closer where the pond is. And these are going to be, there's going to be roughly about 10 of the 50 by 50 plots, seed plots for seed preservation. And this area behind me right here is what we call kind of our native berm. Now, the reason why I call it our native berm is because it's a berm planted with all natives. We have pawpaws in the front, and then behind that we have hazelnuts. We have our shagbark hickories on either side. And then we also are going to have things like service berries, as well as a bunch of wildflowers planted up on this hill here. And we're also, just next to that, going to have the apiary. So just next to that in the back of the property, we're going to have our apiary, which is where all of our honeybees are going to be for pollination. And that is absolutely incredible because it's going to give us the control of increasing the pollination without having to rely on outside pollinators, despite the fact we are going to also invite pollinators into the garden, into the farm as well. All right, now that we are back on the ground, we could talk about some other things that we have going on. So a lot of you also probably know that we are going to be slowly phasing out the other smaller gardens, like the garden at our house and the garden at the shop. Now, it's not to say we won't ever film content there, but again, the whole purpose of this farm was to not only bring better quality content to all of you, but to make it easier for us to bring quality content. Just the noise, the ambiance, the space, all of it was not really conducive to producing good quality content. And so where else are we going to film our content? Well, we're going to film it primarily here. How are we going to do that? Well, we're going to have basically the same size garden we have at our house and the shop right here at the farm. And so behind me, we're going to have roughly about a 100 by 50, so about 5,000 square foot raised bed garden. And I know you're probably thinking, well, Luke, that seems kind of crazy to put a raised bed garden. The whole point is that we still want to show you what you can do on a city lot. We want to show you what's possible. We want to have options, and we want to be able to showcase what you can do in raised beds, because we've always grown in raised beds, but we also have grown in ground. And I know a lot of you say, well, Luke, I wish you'd showcase growing in ground, because I know that there's sometimes some differences. Well, I haven't forgotten about you. All over here in the front, we're going to have surrounding our pond, basically from the greenhouse all the way over this way, we're going to have, and it's super muddy right now because they just did all the earthwork, so the ground hasn't had a chance to settle out yet, but we are going to have an in-ground garden. And boy, is it muddy. And this in-ground garden is going to be roughly 100 by 30. So roughly about 3,000 square feet of in-ground garden. And basically, it's only going to differ in the style of gardening. We're going to kind of work the soil with a broad fork. We're going to practice things like no-till gardening. We're going to add compost and layer compost to make berms rather than our raised beds. And we're going to work those berms into the kind of heavier clay soil to amend that and allow us to grow the same type of crops, just in a different style. And so those are the two gardens you're going to see on top of the greenhouse and the orchard and the seed plots. We're still going to show you all the seed plots. We do lots of seed saving videos. That is all basically where we're growing plants. So next you're probably wondering, Luke, how are we going to water all these plants? Well, that's with the help of this pond. Now the pond, you can't quite see it because it's not full yet. We only have about 4 or 5 feet of water in it right now. But when it's totally full, we'll have about 17 feet deep, a 17-foot deep pond. And the dimensions of the pond are 80 by 100 roughly. So it's going to be approximately 8,000 square feet. That is a huge pond with a ton of water that will help to irrigate all of our trees and our seed plots and basically anything that would need water. Now, we are not going to rely solely on the pond. Obviously, we have the property oriented in kind of swales. And the swales essentially are transitions from high areas to low areas. And a lot of permaculturists use swales in their design to give them free water. Essentially, the water that falls in the form of rainwater will move to the pockets where we have trees planted. And those are very strategically placed around the property so that we can kind of reduce how much we have to water. The natural irrigation of the rainfall will kind of move water from those, move water into those swales to naturally irrigate our trees, which is awesome. And then the third and final way is through a well. We haven't dug the well yet, but eventually we're going to put a well on the property so that if the pond ever were to run dry, we have a backup option for irrigation. So that is how we get water to all the trees. And then finally is our pole barn. Now, our pole barn is obviously not here yet, but they are going to be putting it up relatively soon, hopefully before the new year. We are on the schedule. We have put down our deposit. So all the materials are on order, and he did tell me that within the next couple weeks, they're going to start construction on the pole barn. The pole barn is going to be basically the dimensions of this sand pad that they've they've put here. And then eventually they're going to pour concrete or cement for the slab of the pole barn, which is great. Now, past the pole barn, or I should say the pole barn's dimensions are going to be about 30 feet wide by 50 feet long, give or take. I think it's 30 by 48. And so we're going to have roughly about a 1,500 square foot pole barn. And then off of the pole barn, we're going to have an awning that's going to give us protection and shelter from the elements. It's going to offer us a place to put seating. And then eventually, when we're open to the public, in 3 or 4 years, we're going to have an option for us to then have places for us to display things that we're harvesting for sale. So there's lots of different uses for that awning, but the awning is going to extend out quite a ways. It's going to give us an additional, probably close to, maybe 500 to 600 square feet of additional space. So that's really super cool. But that is the whole farm. There's obviously so much more that I wish I could talk about, but we haven't fully fleshed out those ideas yet. There's a lot more stuff we're planting and planning. We've talked about maybe doing a strawberry patch. We've talked about maybe doing a blueberry patch. We've talked about doing so many other things. We've talked about even doing like a little bit of a bird sanctuary. My uncle is really big into birds, attracting things like wood ducks and bluebirds and just really amazing creatures that we would love to have seasonally on the property as well. And so there's been talks of maybe doing something like that. But let me know. The great thing about this is that yes, we do still have a lot going on. And yes, we've already done a lot. And the funny thing is Hannah, our videographer, we were talking today, and she said, it's funny because the more we fill this property up, it seemed insane. It seemed like a ton of space, but now it seems like everything is kind of getting a little bit cramped. And that's the idea. Yes, it is. We're using the space up. We have a purpose. And so the great thing is we do still have a lot of open space and we have a lot of room to expand in the future, which is awesome. But let me know in the comments box below stuff that you would like to see. And if enough people respond to it, or if there's, enough interest, I'd love to make it a part of the farm. I would love to, so that we can, like I said, bring higher quality content out to all of you. So with that, I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you all learned something new. And as always, this is Luke from the MIgardener channel, reminding you to grow bigger. Take care. Bye. Hey, thank you so much for watching today's video. I really appreciate it. If you enjoyed, consider clicking this one. You'll probably enjoy it just as much. I want to thank you for your viewership, because without it, this channel would not be as amazing as it is. Also, if you haven't subscribed, consider subscribing. It's free, and we upload videos every Monday, Wednesday, or Friday. We also have vegetable seeds, fertilizer, or tools. If you need any of those, consider visiting MIgardener.com. Links will be in the description box below. We've got you covered. And as always, we'll see you all in the garden. Take care. Bye.